I mean, that game yesterday between Dallas and the 49ers was insane the way it ended. And quite frankly, Jimmy G almost blew the whole thing for the 49ers in a number of different ways. And the one way that he did it, and we really didn't get a chance to talk about it, there wasn't much of a postgame show, was on the quarterback sneak, where they have a fourth and about 2 inches. And they're going to run a play where they're going to shift their left tackle, Trent Brown, to the right tight end spot. Now,
Trent Williams, right?
Trent Williams.
Yeah.
And the great thing about that play is that you design that play because very rarely is there a left tackle ever shifting. So the idea is, let's see if we can shift and get them to jump off sides. So that's why you would do the shift in the first place. And they did it, and they executed that part of it fine. But Jimmy G, as the quarterback, has got to make sure that Trent Williams is going to get set at the right tight end spot so then he can run the quarterback sneak. And he snaps the ball before Trent Williams can get set, so you have an illegal motion penalty, and then they have to punt the ball to the Cowboys.
Yeah, I was very confused about that
right.
when it happened because they actually said false start. They didn't say illegal motion. They said false start. And then Trent Williams, when they looked at the video, I mean, he's down there. He's got his hand on the ground.
Yeah, but it was illegal motion. He wasn't set. He did not get set. And that's part of the quarterback's responsibility. You have to make sure that when you're doing things like that, you know why you're doing it, and then you have to wait until the guy gets set, and then you run the quarterback sneak. He would have gotten the first down. Dallas would have never gotten the ball back, and never would we have had the fire drill that we had there at the end. And here's the thing that I always say to myself, as a broadcaster or somebody who's done a million games, I always felt like the demarcation line is 16 seconds.
Okay.
16 seconds to get a play off.
It was 14 yesterday.
So it was 14 seconds, and Dak Prescott ran 17 yards. But it's not so much him running 17 yards. The umpire who is behind him when the play starts
is running like 25
He's got to run like 25 to 27 yards. And plus, he's like 55 years old and overweight.
Sure.
And by the way, if I'm Dak Prescott, I'm told, because this is situational football, this is the end of the game. This is like broken arrow type of stuff. This is where we got to go all in, and we got to make certain type of plays, and we got to see if we can get the ball into the end zone. He's got to hand the ball to the umpire to place the ball down, because the umpire always has to place the ball down.
Got to touch the ball,
He's always got to touch it, and hopefully everybody understands that. And then I think what Dallas was trying to do is that they were going to try to get a little bit closer, not for a Hail Mary, but for him to drive one in there. They probably had a special play designed, not saying that it would have worked, but they would have had a special play design where it wouldn't have been a Hail Mary. It would have been more of a, let me drive at one of those seam routes in to maybe Dalton Schultz or to CeeDee Lamb, or give somebody a chance to go up and get one, against 2 players, as opposed to having a mosh pit down there and throwing it into like 10 players.
Sure, which is a very low percentage play.
So I kind of understand. Like, it's very forward thinking on the part of the coaches, Kellen Moore and Mike McCarthy.
It's
and
just
everything
horrendous execution.
They just didn't have enough time on the clock. That's all. 14 seconds is at 14 seconds to run 17 yards and then have the umpire run 25 yards with you. You're not going to get a playoff. You're just not. Even if you hand the ball to the umpire, I don't think that they would have had 1 second left. Some people think that they would have, but I always, doing the games as long as I've been doing them, playing and sitting in meetings and going over situational football like that, we always said 16 seconds was the cutoff one. Unless it was like a really quick run and you could get up to the ball, but then again, the defense is told not to get up off the ball, off the ground, and off the ball carrier.
Yeah, well, they could have pulled it off if Dak didn't run as far as he did.
Right.
They could have pulled it off if it was a quicker pass.
Yes.
They could have pulled it off. Well, they could have tried. There's a number of things they could have done, as you know. Anybody who's watched football.
Or 2 Hail Marys.
2 Hail Marys, they could have tried. Now, I know that San Francisco changed their defense from what you saw in like the first 4 plays of that drive, and they were guarding the sideline finally because they were just going right down the field 40 yards in like 10 seconds, letting the guys get out of bounds.
We were praising D'Amico Ryans. He's the the defense coordinator, took over for Rob Saleh. And he did a really good job of mixing in the blitz there towards the end of the fourth quarter, not on that last drive, but prior to that last drive, because prior to that last drive, they had a sack and 3 incompletions.
Yep.
And that's when
really where the game was
lost.
lost.
49ers got it back. And, D'Amico Ryans did a great job calling the defense in order to get the ball back from the Dallas Cowboys. But then those first 3 plays, I think it was, I didn't understand his defensive alignments. The one thing I will say, and I know you don't have the players, But if you want to understand what the Jets are supposed to look like or hoping they're going to look like, the 49ers is the model. They are the model that Rob Saleh has come from, and that's what he wants that team to look like, his team to look like what we saw yesterday. It's just that his team just doesn't have the defensive linemen, doesn't have the defensive ends, and certainly, doesn't
They
have
lost Bosa yesterday.
They don't have Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, right, of course, who was just all over the place, and he was rushing more than he was receiving yesterday. But yeah, and then losing Nick Bosa in the course of the game too. It didn't really slow down their pass rush. They were all over Dak Prescott the entire day.
See, I would have liked Dallas to go more no huddle. Once Bosa's out of the game, try to go more no huddle in the body of the game and try to wear out those defensive linemen. I mean, they hate doing. They need a breather, and that's why they usually have 8 defensive linemen on rosters because they're going to rotate those guys.
Yeah,
the offensive linemen don't ever rotate; they're always out there.
Sure, of course.
The defensive linemen, for some reason, are always rotating. I don't know why, but anyway, I go no huddle and try to, just absolutely just run them right into the ground. But they didn't do that until they had to do it, and Dak finally had some success. And by the way, up until that last drive that they should have never had, they only had 250 yards of total offense.
They got
their asses kicked.
First half was so putrid. This was a really bad day for Mike McCarthy too, I think. And if I am now for a number of reasons. Now it ended up working out when he kicked that field goal because they still had a shot. They had 2 chances, really. I mean, they basically had 2 chances to go and win the game and could not do it.
Just remember this. He kicked the field goal with about 11 minutes and 53 seconds to go in the game. And by the way, his defense was playing well.
It ended up working out.
Except for a couple bad penalties.
Right.
Now, we know that he's down 2 scores, but I'm not arguing with Coach Cowher at all. We're just kind of discussing the situation. This is what makes football so great because it is situational football. You have to take into account the way the game is being played. It's not just analytics. But Mike McCarthy kicked that field goal, which meant that if they would have scored touchdowns, they wouldn't have had to go for 2. They could have kicked the extra
but you still
points.
Needed to score 2 touchdowns regardless. I mean, that was the thing. And you're running out of time when you need all those possessions.
If we're under 8 minutes, you're going for it on 4th down. You're north of 11 minutes, almost 12 minutes. You kick the field goal. Now you take the 2-point plays out of the game. Now it's just extra points and a touchdown without even an extra point. You only need 13 points as opposed to 16 points.
And the way the game played out with a really bad interception from Jimmy G, it really was. It ended up being the right call, but at the time, I was very surprised.
So Jimmy G not only threw the interception, he missed a wide open Sherfield. He also misses a wide open Brandon Ayuk earlier in the game in the 3rd quarter, which probably would have sealed the game. And the one thing you saw yesterday from Kyle Shanahan, the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers, is just how uber aggressive he is late in games. And he got, a lot of criticism when he was the offensive coordinator of the Atlanta Falcons when they lost the game to the New England Patriots when they were up 28-3, and he's still throwing. And I understand there's always this idea like you got to play aggressive, you got to stay with your game plan. And yes, you do to a degree, but you also got to be smart as well. And, to put the ball in the hands of Jimmy Garoppolo, who's had issues in this situation, and this is why, I was watching Kyle Shanahan standing there on the sideline. I know he's seething. He's got Brandon Ayuk wide open, misses him. He's got Sherfield wide open, throws an interception over top of him. Tries to run a freaking quarterback sneak and doesn't allow his left tackle to get set at the right, tight end spot. You could see that he's seething. He's going like, there's no way that this guy's going to be my quarterback. I mean, these are the highest levels of the NFL. These are about as competitive of games that there really are, especially when teams are close like the 49ers and Cowboys. And, ownership, guys like Jerry Jones snap in situations like this. So there's no telling what he might do.
Yeah, you know what's interesting, though? I think about Jerry Jones and the Jason Garrett tenure there, and he was very patient with him. I don't know if he's going to be as patient with Mike McCarthy, especially with him being older. And the way that this game just unfolded, it has to be so frustrating. And the undisciplined play and the penalties and the fact that, I mean, that whole fake punt thing and then keeping the punt team out there, and then having the offense run on and taking a delay of game penalty.
Well, I know Tony Romo said it right. They were trying to get San Francisco to use a timeout.
Yeah, but it didn't work, and then they ended up using
but sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't work, and it looks ugly. But they were. I know it because they had done that during the year already. The other thing too is they ran a fake punt. Remember that they ran a fake punt and they kept the ball. I mean, like, there's a lot of things, and I asked Coach Cowher yesterday this, and just you have to go back and look at it over and over and over again to really get a true understanding of all the decisions that were made. But I said, what do you think about Coach McCarthy? He goes, I got to tell you, I thought he managed the game really, really well. He goes, there were a couple issues where that one series where Dallas gets the ball and they go 4 and out. That was the game for Dallas.
Yeah, right the previous to the clock running out series. Yeah,
because they should have never had the ball at the end. It's not the officials' fault. And I saw where after the game, were they throwing things at the Dallas Cowboy players or were they throwing things at the officials?
It was the officials, and the Cowboy players were in the way, kind of.
Right, and Dak Prescott said, good for our fans for throwing stuff at the officials. Timeout, man.
Yeah, that's not great.
You can't be saying stuff like that. You're a great guy. You're the face of the franchise. I'm a big fan and big supporter of his, and I've loved him since he was at Mississippi State. But you can't say that. That's on your ass. That's on your team's ass. You're the one that had 251 total yards of offense prior to that last drive, and you tried to run a play that is almost impossible to get another play off because of the time constraints. And you didn't hand the ball to the umpire. I'm sorry, you can't just let it lay there.
Yeah, offensively, they were poor. He threw that bad pick that led to the Deebo Samuel touchdown there in the third quarter. Of course, this was on the Cowboys more than it was on the officials.
If he doesn't throw that pick, the 49ers not scoring another point.
Yeah, no, of course not.
Because the Cowboy defense played great.
They
played great. That Micah Parsons was all over the place. Van Der Esch made a couple really key tackles. And I believe that Randy Gregory doesn't know the rules. I believe he doesn't know the rules.
I wouldn't be surprised.
He acted surprised when he tackled. Now, you usually don't see defensive holding on defensive linemen. It's very rare that you see that.
It has to be egregious, which it was.
And twice it happened yesterday with the Dallas Cowboys. And, there on the one, Randy Gregory tackled one of the pulling, I don't know if it was a guard or a tackle, and just threw him to the ground.
It's almost like he was taught that, though. That's what I don't understand.
What did I do? I said, you cannot do that.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the red bell so you're notified when we have new content.